Hey there booktube, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm giving you my wrap up of what I did reading wise in January. In January I participated in 2 readathons. I did the biannual bibliothon in the middle of January. I only read 2 books for that challenge because I had a trip during the week and I just wasn't able to finish my TBR. I also participated in the Diversathon, which was 8 days from January 22nd to January 29th, and during the Diversathon I read 4 books. Overall I read 9 books. 4 of those were by male authors, 5 were by female authors, 2 of those were non-fiction, 7 fiction, and my total number of pages was 2,031. The first book I read in January was Shylock is My Name by Jacobson. This was a retelling of Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, and I rated this book 4 stars. Jacobson used Shylock's desire to extract a pound of flesh from Antonia's chest and made that a metaphor for taking whatever is close to a man's heart. In discussing the religious themes, he symbolized that extraction with circumcision. It stayed true to the original story while it gave, I think, a little bit deeper meaning, a little bit deeper look into the difference between Christian and Jew and religion and desire and greed. I think the major impediment for this book was the language that Jacobson used. The vocabulary was very high strung. Some of the words that he used were pretty superfluous and pedantic. I'm only saying that because those are the kinds of words that he used in the book, and I thought that might have been a little bit of a turn off for some people reading the book. And so overall I rated this book 4 stars. Next I read JoJo Moyes' Paris for One and Other Stories. First story, Paris for One, was actually a novella and it took 150 pages. The other 8 stories were only left with 124 pages. I thought that those stories were a little bit too short for me to get good character development. The theme of the stories was about women taking control of their lives after having kind of relinquished control for some really long time. I thought she weaved the theme through all the stories pretty well, but because the stories were pretty short, the stories, they didn't stick with me going forward. Overall I gave this a 3-star rating. Next up was Mr. Potter by Jamaica Kincaid. This was a fictionalized version, I think, of Jamaica Kincaid's real life. The story is about a woman. She lives in America, but she's from the West Indies. She's from Antigua. She finds out that her father is dead and she returns home to Antigua to write his memoirs. Even though she never knew him, she'd only met him once as a child. And so the story is a rambling of kind of her imagination of his life, tracing his parents meeting, his birth, his parents abandoning him, and kind of trying to understand why he then went on to kind of fulfill that same generational issue and abandon her. Kincaid's writing style is extremely unique. She starts the book in the middle of a thought, in the middle of a paragraph. The first word in the book is "and." She talks about things that she has no way of knowing, and it seems it came off as though this was just her rambling as she tries to understand something that she has no way of understanding because the person that she's writing about is dead. I thought it was so unique, so well crafted, so well thought out, so well delivered. I gave this a 5-star rating. I've been wanting to read this book for a while. Jonathan Safran for Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. This is a historical fiction that is set in post 9/11 New York City, as well as during the Second World War. There are 2 narrators. The first narrator is a 9-year-old boy who has lost his father in the World Trade Center attacks, and this book is his attempt at trying to understand his father. He's found a key that his father left with some kind of a clue, and he tries to find the lock that the key belongs to because he thinks in doing so he will understand more about who his father was. This book is a look at how relationships evolve and how we get what we really need from people. I rated this book a 5-star because the medium that Foer used to tell the story are so unique. Like, this is an example of a page from the book. There are images as well as words that are just written in different colors. There are several pictures in this book that mean something, and as we go through the story, we understand a little bit more about what they mean and why the author uses them. I thought that this was such an inventive way of telling a story, and the narrator, even though he was a child and therefore kind of an unreliable narrator, I love the story. I rated this book 5 stars as well. Unburnable by Marie-Elena John is a multi-generational look at women, the struggles that women go through adjusting to their life, playing with the cards that life has dealt them. This book takes place in Dominica, and it is a look at West Indian history, the influence of African culture, and the kind of struggle that women go through just living their normal lives, the relationship that women have with each other. There are many aspects of this book that I love. I made an emotional connection to the characters, but in the end I felt that the author left me flat because the theme of the book, which was about women triumphing through and over their struggles, I felt like that faded away in the end. Ultimately, I gave this book a 3-star rating, and this was the first book that I read during the Diversathon. The next book I read during the Diversathon was The Colossus of New York by Colson Whitehead. He's the author of the book that the group was reading for the Diversathon challenge. I wasn't able to read that book, so I chose to read this other book that he authored instead. This is a collection of vignettes about New York City, 13 different aspects of New York City. This book felt very poetic. It felt like a love song or a love poem to New York City. I identify with almost every emotion that Whitehead described and tried to evoke in me and other readers, and I think anyone who's ever lived in or visited New York City would find something in this book to love. So I gave this book a 4-star rating. Sula is the third book that I read for the Diversathon challenge. This is Toni Morrison's novel about women and the relationship that women have with each other, and kind of the place that women had in society in the mid 20th century and kind of the place that women occupied in society. This character, the title character Sula, this book showed her experiencing and enjoying some of the privilege that women, African Americans, were enjoying at this time, as well as highlighted some of the struggles that they were facing. It discussed the methods that women used and employed to kind of reconcile what society had been expecting from them for so long and the choices that they were now free to make. I felt that this book was so well thought out. Morrison has an extremely captivating way of telling a story. She creates the world that the characters to inhabit. She creates companion characters that they will have relationships with, and then she introduces the character and shows the main character's relationship to all those other things that she created before. I think that is such an inventive way of telling a story, so creative. So of course I rated Sula 5 stars. The last book I read during the Diversathon challenge was this poetry collection entitled Rooms I Never Finished. It is by Agha Shahid Ali. He is Kashmiri. The theme of this book was grief and loss and sorrow and despair and loss and everything that is sad. So his mother comes to the United States to seek treatment for a medical condition. Unfortunately she doesn't get well and she dies, and so this book is his musings as he deals with the loss of his mother, both here in the United States and when he travels back home to India to bury her body, and everything that he experiences is now colored with the pain of losing her. I love the poetry. I thought it was very emotional, very captivating, but because of the sadness, because of the themes, unfortunately I knocked it down, so I gave it a 4-star rating. And the last book that I read in January was this short novel entitled Miss Spitfire, Reaching Helen Keller, which is a historical fictional autobiography by Annie Sullivan, who was the partially blind herself young woman who taught Helen Keller to read and write. And you know, if you know the story of Helen Keller, you know that she went on to become a public speaker. She went on to receive a college degree. She was the first person with that disability to receive one. And Annie Sullivan's place in history has been marked with statues and awards and so on. And this book is compiled from letters that she sent while she was kind of trying to learn to teach Helen Keller. The fact that she was blind herself, partially blind herself, meant that she understood perhaps in a better way what Helen Keller was facing. And so I thought the story was really well written. Even if parts of it were fictional, I thought it was such a wonderful story. And I was very happy that even though the Diversathon had ended, I was able to read this book to round off my January reads. So there you have it. Those are the 9 books that I read in January. In February, my focus is on reading books with Black authors. My next read is Star Side of Bird Hill. It's a novel by Naomi Jackson and it takes place in Barbados. I have close friends from Barbados, so I'm really looking forward to reading a little bit more of the fiction that takes place in a place that they have told me so much about. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading. What was the best book that you read in January? And what do you have on your February TBR? Leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I look forward to sharing more videos with you soon. So thanks for watching and I'll see you later. Bye!